You're listening to Beyond the Couch podcast with Dr. Sally Nazari, where we look at you beyond the couch and build ways to enrich your life, share your triumphs, achieve your goals, and most importantly, where we'll be celebrating you. Let's get started. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Beyond the Couch podcast. I'm your host, licensed clinical psychologist and Reiki master teacher, Dr. Sally Nazari. And I can't wait to talk today about how to manage anxiety. Now, last week, we spent a little bit of time just getting a sense of what anxiety is, how it shows up, and the effect that it has for us. Maybe you've noticed that you just can't stop worrying about things, constantly feel on edge like something awful is going to happen. Or maybe you're finding yourself having a hard time doing things because the thought of actually going and doing them, whether they're specific things or just anything, leaves you feeling like something awful is going to happen. Or you might just be berating yourself, criticizing yourself, thinking that other people are going to judge you, laugh at you, make fun of you, or just not like you. All of these kinds of things fit in with anxiety. Now, what we'd like to spend a little bit of time on today is looking at how we can start to get in the way of that, how we can start to shift that sense of worrying, that nonstop inner critic that you have. It might keep you from doing the things that you love so that you can get back to building a life that's important to you, that's meaningful, that's filled with the things that are valuable to you. And when it's appropriate, you'll find yourself worrying, but it'll be within reason and within the proportionate amounts of the situations that you're facing. So it may not hold you back. It might actually help propel you forward. Now, we'll be focusing on just a handful of things that'll start to make an important change and shift in how you're dealing with your anxiety. We'll go through a couple of those, and at the end, I'd like to close with a visualization so that we can just feel safe and calm and have something relaxing to come back to. And we'll talk about why relaxing is so important in terms of managing anxiety, and yet sometimes it feels like the exact thing that we just can't get ourselves to do. So I'll give you some tricks, tips, and shortcuts to getting there today. Now let's get started. So if you remember from last week's episode, one of the things that happens with anxiety is that it sort of takes over our physical, emotional, mental, cognitive, and psychological selves. Now, the good news there is that we can intervene on several different levels. One of those things is in the physiological vein. Now, one important tool is our breath. When we become anxious, it's natural for us to hold our breath without realizing it, or more commonly, we start to breathe in a more shallow way. Our breath is sort of stuck in our chest, right? We're not really taking those fulfilling, deeper, full breaths. Now, the reason we do that is so that we can better oxygenate our muscles and that way respond to the threat. You might remember from the Understanding Disruptions episode that when we're faced with a stressor or a threat, we respond much in the same way we did as when we were dealing with saber-toothed tigers, for example. Our lives have shifted quite a bit, yet our physiology still responds in the same vein. The difficult thing here in terms of anxiety is that it now helps us stay more anxious, more primed to deal with a stressor rather than calming ourselves from it. So one of the first things we want to do is slow our breathing down. One way of doing that is diaphragmatic breathing, where we focus particularly on filling our diaphragm with our breath. Now, other ways of doing this are to count our breaths. We might suddenly notice that we're taking deeper and more full breaths. Now, if we catch ourselves starting to feel dizzy or a little bit faint, it might be that we are in fact over-breathing or hyperventilating, which can keep us more anxious. The one other tool is square or box breathing. And what we do here is actually take a count of 4 to inhale, a count of 4 to hold that inhaled breath, a count of 4 to exhale it, and a count of 4 to hold that exhaled breath as well. And we'll repeat 3 or 4 cycles of this to just slow our breathing down. What this will do is immediately start to slow our physiology down as well. Now, another way that we can act on our physiology in order to just slow down some of that anxiety so that we can stop that worrying in its tracks, so we can stop berating ourselves and get back to a better feeling or the things that we want to do, is to make sure that we're exercising or moving our muscles in some way. Much like our breath, our body becomes primed to take on the stressor or the threat. But in most situations, the physicality of this isn't really something that is helpful to us. So what we can do is engage in brief exercise if we have a couple of minutes to do that. We can also make sure that on a regular basis we have an outlet for exercise or some type of movement. What we can also do in those quick moments where the anxiety starts to creep up on us is something called progressive muscle relaxation. Now, progressive muscle relaxation, or PMR for short, is exactly what it sounds like. It's a way of sequentially moving through our body parts to actually tighten and then release them in sort of an exaggerated way. Now, you might have noticed when you're anxious, you're tensing up a lot of muscles that you're not necessarily aware of right then. It's only when we relax sometimes that we notice, or we might just notice that we have some pains that don't really have any other reason contributing to them. So with progressive muscle relaxation, we're sort of forced to take notice of what the tension in our body feels like, and then what the relaxation feels like. Not only is this soothing, comforting, and just relaxing on its own, it does actually start to help us feel less anxious. It'll slow down those racing thoughts. It'll slow down those what if things that we're asking ourselves, leading to catastrophes. And our breath will actually follow as well. Now, as a treat for you guys, I've included access to a sample, very quick progressive muscle relaxation for you. So you'll see that listed in the show notes. Be sure to get yours so that you can start practicing this tool. Remember, if we're practicing this during our neutral states, it becomes much easier to make use of in the heat of the moment when we need it. So with those ways of intervening through our physiology, now we can transition over to some other strategies. One important way of navigating and managing anxiety is to make sure that we have a good understanding of how it's showing up for us. By tracking our anxiety levels, we can begin to identify what specifically contributes to anxiety and what specifically contributes to lowering our anxiety. This way, not only are we understanding it better, seeing the patterns show up, seeing the ways that it affects us and impacts our lives, but we can also start to take notice of what works, what makes the anxiety come down, what helps us get back on track. So what I'd like for you to do is focus on a part of your day where you can remind yourself to take just a few minutes and just track your anxiety level for that day. And in those couple of minutes, also take notice of what happened before, what happened after, whether you've had any stimulants that day, for example, caffeine, nicotine. Consider whether you exercised that day, how you slept, and most importantly, think about what happened after. Were there things that took place after you started to feel anxious that contributed to even more anxiety? Or what happened after that helped calm you down? Now, these things are important for us as we think about something really important in terms of managing our anxiety levels, and that's our self-talk. Self-talk is another way of describing our thinking patterns, the automatic thoughts that we have that we don't always take notice of have an effect on the way that we feel as well as the way that we behave, or if we shut down and hold back from behaviors. Often, we have thinking patterns that emerge with anxiety. Now, the important thing here is that in tracking the things that are contributing to our anxious feelings, our racing thoughts, and the things that reinforce those anxious thoughts, we can begin to see some of these patterns emerge. Let's talk a bit more about some basics on self-talk. Self-talk tends to appear in telegraphic form, so one short word or image contains a whole series of thoughts, memories, or associations. And it's generally irrational, but it almost always sounds like the truth. For example, what if thinking tends to lead us to expect the worst possible outcomes in a given situation, ones that are generally highly unlikely to occur, yet because the association takes place so quickly, it goes unchallenged and unquestioned. Now, that makes it hard to evaluate the validity of this belief, and we just accept it as it is. Now, remember, we have between 50 and 70,000 thoughts a day, which makes it impossible for us to keep track of all of them, and yet we're responding to them with our feelings and our behavior. That's one reason why mindfulness can be such a valuable tool in terms of combating anxiety. Now, let's keep moving forward with our basic points about self-talk. Negative self-talk perpetuates avoidance. We tell ourselves that a situation is dangerous, and so we end up avoiding it. But paradoxically, by continuing to avoid it, we reinforce the thought that it's dangerous. We might even start projecting images of catastrophe around the prospect of encountering this situation. So, anxious self-talk leads to avoidance. Avoidance leads to further anxious self-talk, and round the cycle goes. Now, the good news about negative self-talk is that it's a series of bad habits. We learn to think this way. It becomes automatic for us. Now, just as we can replace unhealthy behavioral habits with more health-promoting behavior and habits, we can replace this kind of thinking with more positive, supportive mental habits as well. It will take the same persistence and practice that's required for learning any new behavior or skill. As we're tracking our anxiety levels, along with what happened before, what happened after, and the different self-talk that we have for ourselves, we want to do a couple of things to begin disputing this negative self-talk. The first thing we want to do is just take notice of it. This will feel easier said than done, but mindfulness practices will help. We want to make sure we're doing this non-judgmentally. So we want to catch ourselves in the act, but if we start berating ourselves and judging ourselves for it, we're going to aggravate the negative self-talk and further fuel the anxiety. So the first step, simply notice it. Next, we want to stop, and we want to ask ourselves a series of questions. Ask yourself, what am I telling myself that's making me feel this way? Then ask yourself, do I really want to do this to myself? And finally, ask if you really want to stay upset. And if you realize that the answer to these last two questions is no, keep going. But if you realize that you do feel more comfortable right now feeling anxious, it may just be because you have a need at that moment to keep everything under control, to feel more vigilant in that time, and you can go back and ask yourself this question in the future as well. Now, if you'd like to shift your state, the next step is to distract yourself, disrupt the anxiety through some kind of relaxation strategy. It's important to do that so that we can begin activating that parasympathetic nervous system, which can help us move away physiologically as well as cognitively and emotionally from that anxious state. And before we wrap up today, I will give you one tool in helping with that. It will be a nice visualization that you can come back to time and time again. At this point, the next step is to write down the negative self-talk, that inner dialogue, that self-statement that's keeping you anxious, that's contributing to the state of anxiety that you're feeling. What is it you're telling yourself? Once you've written that, identify where this may be inaccurate. Identify where it might be catastrophic. Look for any kind of distortions that might be taking place. See if you have objective data that can verify or dispute this kind of statement. And finally, the last step is actually begin to dispute it. We don't have to dispute this statement that we're making 100%. All we have to do is challenge a tiny piece of it. Is there one element of this self-talk that's inaccurate? Is there one piece of this that's not 100% true 100% of the time? And is there evidence for that? It's important that this dispute be something that you also believe in to some extent. Otherwise, you might as well just tell yourself random things, which may be fun, but it may just distract you in the moment. So I've given you an overview on some of the ways that we can begin to manage our anxiety, that inner critic voice that won't stop, that worrier inside of us that's afraid that anything could lead to a catastrophe, the racing thoughts that get in the way of us celebrating our lives and doing the things with the people that are meaningful to us. With that said, it's also important to work with a therapist qualified in dealing with anxiety in particular. These tips will get you started on the right path to better understanding and then navigating the disruptive pieces of anxiety. Now, I did promise you a relaxation tool, and I'd love to wrap up with that before we say farewell for today. So, get yourself comfortable, settle in, and get ready to relax. Picture yourself in a safe, beautiful place outdoors. Now, imagine that you feel a warm, gentle breeze blowing over your body. Overhead, you can see a beautiful blue sky and some white clouds. Shining directly overhead is the sun. Now imagine that you can feel the warmth and light from the sun directly above you. You can feel it shining down in and through your entire body. you feel it beginning to relax and soothe every part of your body. In a moment, you might concentrate on the sunlight and move it over to your right arm. Focus it there. Just experience the warmth and light from the sun penetrating the fingertips of your right hand. You can feel it soothing and relaxing your right hand. And in a moment, it begins to move from your right hand to your forearm, and then to your upper arm, and then to your shoulder. Just feel the sunlight warming and soothing your entire right arm. You can feel it filling and soothing every muscle, tendon, and nerve in your right arm. And you feel your right arm from the tips of your fingers to your shoulders becoming completely relaxed. And you find yourself just letting go more and more, becoming more and more at peace. Now, move the light from the sun to your left arm. Imagine it entering and soothing your left hand. And in a moment, you can begin to feel it moving from your left hand up your left arm, soothing your forearm, and then your upper arm, moving all the way up to your shoulder. You're relaxing all the muscles, nerves, and tendons in your left arm, feeling the light penetrating and soothing your entire left arm. Just continue to let yourself drift deeper and deeper into quietness and peace, feeling very safe, secure, and relaxed. And gently now, take the light from the sun and move it over to your right leg. Allow it to move from the tips of your toes all the way up your right leg to the big hip joint. Feel the warmth as the sunlight moves up through your right leg, from your right foot to your right calf, and then to your right knee, and then to your right thigh, and finally to your right hip bone. Just feel the sunlight penetrating and soothing every muscle, tendon, and nerve in your right leg and hip. Your entire right leg is feeling completely relaxed. And in a moment, feel the sunlight move to your left leg. Again, allow it to move from your left foot up through your entire left leg to your hip bone. Feel it soothing and relaxing your left ankle, then your calf, and then your knee, and then soothing all the muscles in your thigh, and finally moving up into your hip. You can feel the sunlight penetrating every muscle, tendon, and nerve in your entire left leg. And in a moment, you find your left leg feeling completely relaxed. And now, move the light from the sun into your stomach area. Just feel it warming and soothing every organ in the lower part of your body. Just feel the pressures and tensions of the day draining away from you as your stomach and lower abdomen relax completely. Feel your stomach and lower abdomen becoming very relaxed. Now, take the light from the sun and move it into your chest area. Let it soothe and comfort that area. Just feel it streaming into your chest. You're feeling relaxation, peace, and comfort throughout your entire chest. Feeling your chest becoming very relaxed and your breathing becoming easy. Now, in a moment, you might bring the light from the sun down through the top of your head. Imagine it soothing and comforting the top of your head, and then the area around your eyes, and then your jaws. And in a moment, feel the warm, soothing sensations of the sunlight moving down into your neck, relaxing and releasing every tight muscle in your neck. And in a while, you can feel your neck completely relaxing. Your head and neck are becoming completely relaxed. And now let the sunlight move down your spine, down through your spine, all the way to your tailbone. Let it move down through your spine, all the way to your tailbone, and then imagine the light moving out from your spine into every nerve of your body. Feel the sunlight moving into every nerve of your body, healing and relaxing all of the nerves. And as all of your nerves relax, you can enter into a very deep state of peace. Just allow yourself to drift deeper and deeper into quietness and peace, becoming more and more relaxed. In a moment, you can feel the sunlight relaxing and soothing every single cell in your body. Every single cell in your body is becoming very relaxed, and you feel yourself becoming very deeply relaxed, very much at peace. And with your next few breaths, you gradually become aware of your surroundings again and reconnect with your day, remembering that this visualization is something you can come back to anytime you need to relax. Thank you for joining us today as we learned how to manage anxiety and practiced a wonderful relaxation tool with our visualization. I can't wait to connect again next time and talk about depression. Until then, take care. Thanks for listening to Beyond the Couch podcast, a space for celebrating you. The contents of this episode are for informational and supplemental purposes only and not a substitute for professional services. For more access to you beyond the couch, check out www.drsallinazari.com.